I'm cute as hell, so who cares?
Ladies and gentlemen, I have some very interesting lore and trivia for you that could probably blow your mind. The only games you should have played are 1, 2, 3 base game and future connected. So let's lay back, get some snacks, and let's get right into it. During the development of Xenoblade 1, Ricky was originally meant to have the lowest amount of HP out of everyone in the party, but one day the devs gave him just the highest amount of HP as a joke, and everyone liked it so much that they kept it this way. In Cross, using the return to scale option is the same as using fast travel, so this means that the area is reloaded once you arrive, causing enemies and items to respawn. This is a really good trick to know for farming enemy drops or items for the squad tasks, which speeds up the process immensely in most cases. In 3, all people coming from Alres and Bionis have a core crystal or wear a power frame, except 2 people, Rex and Nelia. Blades used to not always awaken with weapons. It could be any item, but through natural selection only the ones with weapons survived. Blades were meant to guide and help humans, but since humans influence blades, they probably got weapons to help the humans in conflicts and wars. Nopons are the only models that have all of their emotions essentially preloaded at all times, hiding right behind their face, always ready to be instantly displayed when needed. In post-battle dialogue with Ursula and Rex, Ursula will hum the theme of Engage the Enemy, Rex joining in afterwards.
How about this tune? La 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 la.
It's catchy. La 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 la.
The secret boss in Xenoblade 3, who is also the strongest enemy in Ionios, is probably the strongest enemy we have ever faced, considering that the Seraphic Keratinia is a literal fusion of a Telethia from Xenoblade 1, a Titan from Xenoblade 2, and the Igrolith from Xenoblade Cross. Cosmos in Xenoblade 2 has text on her stomach, which is too blurry to read in-game, though it does get mentioned in the artbook. As a matter of fact, there's also text in her eyes, which also includes a spelling mistake. In the V version of Xenoblade, you can actually revisit Agniritha after it's being destroyed, when the Junks lands in the central factory. You can't skip travel there, but the teleporter to it still works, and it's pretty much the same as before the fight with the Yellowmouth. The Aegis Core Crystal in Xenoblade 2 has an animation that you probably have seen before in cutscenes. But Xenoblade Chronicles 3 actually went one step ahead and animated every single core crystal, something you would normally see up close. Which is also the same thing with Ouroboros and all those little details like animations, moving Ouroboros symbols, and little Aegises hanging down. Should you suck during battle with Pyra against regular enemies, having also used up all your arts and specials, and be below 25% health, Mithra will say,
I can't watch this anymore. Just let me take care of it.
and force you to switch to her, and to play as her, as the stronger blade quote-unquote, refusing to switch back to Pyra, saying,
Absolutely not.
The conduit, aka Zohar, was discovered in Africa, or more specifically, Kenya. Remember when characters in 3 activate their iris to check the map, new infos and such? The background of your own menu is actually an iris. In a way, it is you activating your iris to have a look at the menu. Talking about 3, Origin had a face on it. It being fused by 2 different faces, being for both Zanza Prime from the first game and Amalthus Prime from the second game. There was once a city by the neck of Gormod called White Chair, or also White Throne, that was originally the capital of Gormod, which later was destroyed when Mor Ardain conquered the Titan. And now, think about where Nia's location is in 3. Mor Ardain, by the way, does have a city called Chilsane on the right shoulder, which is home to a large military base, port, and also a large salvaging economy, which is only mentioned in one quest. A random radio that you can find in Future Redeemed has these numbers on it, 98 being 1998 for the release of Xenogears. Then the Xenosaga trilogy from 2002 to 2006 and the Xenoblade series from 2010 to 2022, and the marker being placed at the point in time where Monolith Soft was founded. The World Tree is actually one of 3 beanstalks that connect via an orbital ring around the Earth. Each beanstalk has its own name and lore. All that lore comes from a Siren figurine kit. There's also technically a second higher station for each beanstalk, which is never really directly mentioned or discussed by anyone. Noah actually flips Lucky 7 depending on the enemy, which means he was serious about not killing soldiers from Keves or Agnes. In the short part where you're controlling just Melia right after Shulk dies, if you go to the Junk's infirmary at midnight, there is a special monologue she has with herself that even raises her and Shulk's affinity. If Xenogears would have sold around 100,000 more units, the Xenoblade series probably wouldn't exist, because Square told Takahashi back in the day that if Xenogears sells 1 million copies, a sequel would have been greenlit, and it only sold around 900,000 in that launch year, and has gotten to 1 million way later when Neo has already left the company and founded Monolith Soft. The crystals in Xenoblade 3 are actually a lot of Omega Feathers. The cube you find in Xenoblade 2, which was originally a conduit for both communicating and controlling Ophion, an artifice of the Aegis, meaning that maybe there's another, more important purpose to those crystals. In the files of Xenoblade Cross, people have found beta files of some soul voices for Tatsu that would have played during battle, indicating that at one point Tatsu was maybe considered to be an actual useful party member. We don't know most of the actual names of the Xenoblade 2 Titans, with the only exception being Melnath, aka Gormod's Titan, because we are traveling to Melnath's shoulder, and Genbu, the Titan of Tantal. Zord is the only faced Mechon whose original identity is never revealed. However, by speaking to Desiree and a Colony 9 NPC near the weapon development lab, you were told about a Homs named Zord, who was Desiree's father and had a smithy named Sword Smithy. The NPC also mentions that the Mechon version of Zord had a hammer that was similar to the one that the smithy had. Super Smash Bros. Brawl also has on the description on Zord's trophy that he used to be a blacksmith. If you saw my size comparison of Xenoblade Chronicles, let me tell you that I couldn't implement Elysium, the entire station that you saw in my Out of Bounds video for 2, but I actually measured this one as well. Elysium is 33 kilometers in length. Something that is easily missable in Xenoblade 3 is Galahad Fortress on the right side of the outlook on top of that sword. But what you can see is that the entire path of Sword Valley from the first game is modeled if you're going down the sword. In the side quest White Lifehold, it's revealed that the White Whale had received distress signals from 2 other Ark ships when crashing on Mira. Those signals come from somewhere near them, meaning that they're not that far away. It's hinted at being the Japanese and French Ark ships. In the art book for Cross, we see concept art of the Japanese Ark ship colony and Japanese police skulls. And in a bird's-eye view of Mira, we see 2 additional colonies stranded on Mira. You're always at the exact location on the Bionis and Mechonis where you're supposed to be. Sometimes even at points where it shouldn't be really necessary. The Titans are almost always completely present. Riku and Manana are the only Noppon in the series who have human-like eyes. There are a few short stories from Xenoblade Cross that Monolith Soft released on the Japanese website for Cross, which provide a bit of a backstory of what happened during the first 2 months on Mira, starting right from the crash. They talk about a lot of interesting stuff we don't hear about in the main story of Cross. Nagi mentioned that Mira seemed to just have appeared in front of them, quote-unquote, and during the fight with the ghosts nobody remembered seeing Mira. And next thing they knew, they were being pulled in by that planet. Daddy Pig from Peppa Pig actually shares the same voice actor as Mikkel from Xenoblade 1. Topple is the only combo that has been part of every Xenoblade game and hasn't really changed between the entries with how it works. Considering that the second and third game have the main character on the cover art, which isn't the case in the first game, maybe Zanza and Mainith were the actual main characters from the very start. Or maybe more specifically, Klaus and Galea. Ryan was originally supposed to betray the party when Charlotte would die in Igniritha. He would discover a time machine that could bring her back, but Shulk and the others realized that it would have destructive results, and for this reason they have to confront Ryan, making them fight as the Titans, Shulk as the Bionis and Ryan as Mechonis. This plan didn't go past the planning board though. The first Xenoblade game was originally not supposed to be a Xeno game, and was originally called Monado Beginning of the World. But thanks to Satoru Iwata and him encouraging Takahashi to commemorate and honor his past games and legacy he left behind, he named it Xenoblade. In Nia's Ascension quest cutscene, she is humming the song Drifting Soul in the Japanese version, but for the English version, she is actually humming the Torigoth theme instead. A curious change, to be honest. The Fog King is actually just the infernal Guldor from Xenoblade 2's universe being transported to the Xenoblade 1 universe thanks to the portals. The Mechonis field, known internally as MA1801, is an unused area in Xenoblade Chronicles. Unlike most of the unused locations left on the Wii disc, Mechonis field cannot be accessed as the map data for it no longer exists on the disc, though several references to this location still exist, such as an unused quest listing and an unused copy of the new location jingle located between the cutscene audio for the confrontation with Jade Face and the pilot's reveal, which is happening near the version of the Mechonis field that we have gotten in the retail release. The weird placement of this audio implies that this location was intended to have been visited between Mechonis field and Central Factory. I talked about the site comparison before. Prison Island is actually 2.98 kilometers tall. Moritha actually expands by quite a bit more than the area that you can actually explore. Maybe part of 2 being rushed was lost here, considering that there is a lot of metal plates you can run on, sometimes placed as if there was a point behind it originally. High Entia have wings, but the only High Entia to ever been seen fly is Tyrea. In the cutscene with Argalus and Egil, they are both standing on the Bionis shoulder. You can visit this place in Future Connected, which is called the Companion's Cape. The Sword of Origin is right next to the camera when you receive the power of Ouroboros for the first time. Amalthus Prime is the only story boss that can be defeated by the environment, by pushing him in the same hole he came from, which ends the battle with a win for you. A certain hero called Triton in Xenoblade 3 has the same voice actor as the battle narrator in Xenoblade 2. There are photos in Dunban's and Fiora's house that show an unused area in the game, the Bionis Shoulder, both present in the Wii and Switch version. Regarding Dunban, did you know that he wields the Monado 2 in the tutorial instead of the Monado 1? Not only that, but during the first vision that Shulk has, you can see him blocking Dunban's sword, the scene when Dunban tried to kill Metalface outside of Galahad Fortress. If you pay attention, you see that both Shulk and Dunban have the Monado 1 as their sword. Riki can apparently hear dead people and feel their presence. Talking about Noppon, we don't know their place of origin. Zanza never created them. The game just mentions them eventually settling on the Bionis' back, far away from all of the conflict. They're also nowhere to be seen on the image displaying Allrest's evolution of everything from Xenoblade 2, and exists outside of the flow in Xenoblade 3. When Shulk kissed Fiora, Zanza technically kissed Maineth. Lure can actually miss in, as far as I know, all Xenoblade games. First 2 Xenoblade games each focus on one of the blades based on the Aegis course. Shulk with the Monado, aka Alvis, and Rex with Pyra and Mithra, which means that Malus would be the focus of Xenoblade 3, but he's nowhere to be seen and was in Xenoblade 2 instead. But when you look at Noah and his actions, and especially the Sword of the End, he basically embodies Malus in spirit. They both have the same goal of ending the world and wielding a sword that can destroy anything in order to do so. High Entia traditionally don't eat vegetables, or any food made with them. In Xenoblade Chronicles 1 there is a side quest where you decide who a person named Monica should hook up with. During this quest, if Monica is talked to at a specific time, Monica will say Eric, 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 repeatedly. This may seem to be just Monica, really loving Eric, but this is actually a reference to another game. Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones contains a character named Orson, when he betrays his country to resurrect his wife. His wife is actually just reanimated as a corpse. The only words she is capable of saying is darling, 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 repeatedly. Her name? Monica. Considering that Amalthus is a master driver, just like Rex technically could have also controlled the Xenoblade 2 Titans like Amalthus did. Fiora was placed in an ancient High Entia tissue regenerating capsule for 6 months after fighting the final boss. This was completely left out of the game for some reason and is only explained later in a short story in the game's art book, but this is the reason she is fully Homs again at the end of the game. Something that is likely a leftover feature from the debug testing in Xenoblade 2 is a code that could be activated in earlier versions of the game. This code can instantly kill the characters by holding ZL, ZR, L, R, X, D-pad down for around 5 seconds. It could also be activated in the middle of a cutscene or while talking to an NPC. This code was removed in the version 2.1.0 of the game, which was the last update. The Bionis has biological fleshy eyes. The Mechonis, digital hologram-like eyes. Xenoblade Cross had originally a real protagonist like Shulk and Rex, but was eventually cut and replaced by a customizable avatar, and more than half of the original story was cut as well. Even then, Xenoblade Cross had the wildest and craziest world building and lore out of them all, which you can find in text from collected items and enemies from your Enemypedia. They also love to go in detail on how they reproduce. There is the word sperms in it. There was a bug during the earlier days of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 where Morag would call out Dromok's name as if she were switching to him in battle, which is impossible. This was later fixed in a patch. In Xenoblade 1, if you go back to the spot where you first fought Yaldabaoth after arriving at the Fallen Arm, jumping down the hole that was created by the explosion would actually take you to the Fallen Arm instead of falling to your death. Vandam from 2 actually being royalty is probably the most hidden piece of lore in the series. In a secret area in Garfont there is a phoenix. If you talk to it while having Nim equipped after completing her quest, it will talk about Vandam's past. He nicknamed himself Vandam because of a famous person he looked up to, his actual name being Aquila Paranet Sol Estoriole. A personal headcanon of mine is that Astral Chain was inspired by Xenoblade 2 by having blades as your partner fighting with you, while also being chained to you like during combat in Xenoblade 2, the level of affinity being represented by a blue line of ether connecting the blade to the driver. And later on, the Ouroboros designs from Xenoblade 3 were also inspired by some of the Legion's design from Astral Chain. High Entia have a gene that turns them into Telethia when encountered with an incredibly high amount of ether. Therefore, Sharla probably shouldn't heal a High Entia. And no, Melia doesn't have that gene. Malos is a bad guy because of Amalthus, because the driver's desire and wishes were mirrored in the blades they resonate with. Which means there could be a lore-accurate explanation why Mithra and also Pyra's outfit are pretty skimpy. Not because the devs were feeling things during development, I mean hey, maybe they did, but that Adam's desire for a daughter imprinted on her core crystal and awoke a bratty teen who rebels constantly and wears skimpy clothes to spite her father. In a quest it is stated that Adam had a pregnant wife. Since it is a year after Mithra's awakening, one can assume that Adam already wanted to have a child at the time he awakened her, thus imprinting this wish onto Mithra. In the land of Moritha, there is a highway sign that connects to an interstate that feeds into Houston. According to an interview with Executive Director Tetsuya Takahashi, the decision to use real-time combat over turn-based combat was made because earlier experiments with turn-based combat didn't play very well with the ability to see into the future during battle. There are 2 versions of cutscenes when you face Console X and Uni's side story, and the prison camp breakout, depending on which order you undertake them. The countries in Auris were named after the 7 deadly sins. The etymologies are as follows: Tantal standing for lust, Gormot standing for gluttony, Uriah standing for envy, Mor Ardain standing for pride, Indol for insensibility or in this context sloth, Torna for wrath, and Argentum for greed. The Zulfark from Cross, which you also see from the trailers, is the biggest enemy you can fight in the series by height. According to my current measurements, around 540 meters. By length, it would be the Artifice Ophion, with 600 meters. There is technically one class that no one can learn except one character, and that is Noah when drawing Lucky 7, gaining also a different effect on each art depending on the class you're currently having. Even though Shulk created his own Monado, the Monado 3, it looks suspiciously close to the Monado that the Bionis was wielding. It is possible to get out of bounds in Temperantia into the massive barren wasteland north of the game's map. This giant stretch of land is fully rendered and has collision detection, allowing you to walk as far as you want. But no in-game events happen in this location, leaving the reason to why it was included at all unknown. The achievement for successfully completing your first trade with someone in the game is called Equivalent Exchange. This is most likely a reference to Fullmetal Alchemist, and alchemy's first law of equivalent exchange, which states that to obtain something of equal value must be lost. Noppon used to talk the same way humans do a long time ago, but a historic Noppon called Captain Noppopon noticed that humans looked on them as being innocent and cute. He decided to start talking in a more cutesy way, like modern Noppon do, to appear cuter to humans and gain a diplomatic advantage. Several enemies in Prison Island take their name from famous real-world prisons. There's evidence to suggest that some blades in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 were meant to be playable in some capacity, as Pyra has unused animations and voice lines for things like collecting points, opening chests, climbing ladders, and even a diving animation for field skills. Mithra also has some unused lines in the base game for collecting points and opening chests that aren't in Torna. There is an unused playable character named Lambert in the Japanese version of Xenoblade Chronicles for the Wii. He has various animations for battle sequences as well as running, walking and jumping for movement outside of battle. The model's file name is PC2 because PC stands for playable character in the game. This indicates that he was playable at one point. It's unknown if he was intended to be in the final game or if this was simply just for testing purposes, but his model was found in the file work.pkb, which is only found in the Japanese version of the game. Harry McIntyre, Noah's voice actor, wanted to work with Harry Lloyd, who was Zed's voice actor, for a very long time, and finally got the opportunity with Xenoblade 3. Xenoblade 1's original Japanese release didn't have an in-game clock that counted over 100 hours. The developers didn't think that many people would play it for that amount of time, so they made the timer go up to 99 hours before maxing out. In a revision of the game later, they made it go up to 999 hours, and that's the version we have gotten in the West. There's also a titan called Estam, mentioned in Torna, which we hear very little about. Specia is also mentioned as a location, however it is unknown whether that is simply an area or an unnamed titan, or the actual name of a titan. When the debris was crashing down during the beginning of Xenoblade 1, it was probably because of an attack on Colony 6 by the Mechon that was happening at the exact moment. Which makes sense, considering that Colony 6 is right above Colony 9. As a matter of fact, you can see Colony 9 should you be standing at the Colony 6 location. Tatsu was part of Xenoblade 2 before Elma was. There are specific lines of the Old Testament from the Bible associated with each of the Trinity Processor cores. Pneuma having Proverbs chapter 4 verse 18 stating, "The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day." Logos having Proverbs chapter 10 verse 12 stating, "Hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers over all wrongs." And Ontos having Proverbs chapter 3 verse 13, "Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding." Talking about Proverbs, there are two more. You saw the digital greenish stuff floating around the world tree, right? In these you can find more text mentioning Proverbs chapter 1 verse 7, 8 and 9. "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The foolish despise wisdom as well as doctrine. Listen, my son, to the discipline of your father, and forsake not the law of your mother." Linnea and Riki share the same Japanese voice actor, Yuki Keida. Fiora and Metalface appear in Project X Zone 2. Shulk is in Smash 4, and together with Pyra and Mithra in Smash Ultimate, including also some characters like Laura and Jin, Alma and Tatsu, Noah and Mio, all of them as spirits. The clothing of Rex is in Smash Ultimate and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You got Xenoblade twice in Tetris 99. The heavy blade skin Mithra in Warframe looking like a Monado. Adam Howden feeling it in the LEGO Star Wars Skywalker Saga, Shulk in Super Mario Maker, and Shulk's skin for Yoshi in Yoshi's Woolly World. Xenoblade Puzzle and Puzzle Swap for 3DS, Xenoblade 3D and Xenoblade Cross on 2 video game shelves and Animal Crossing New Leaf, Danganronpa version 3 Killing Harmony referencing Xenoblade Cross by mentioning Prone and Ganglion, the Monado appears in Nobody Saves the World on a wall together with other iconic video game source, and Terraria has a painting called Xenoblade Chronicles, referencing the name and title screen of Xenoblade Chronicles. The islands in the ending cutscene of 2 are in the game despite the scenes being pre-rendered. Here's what it looks like. Gray uses the same class and kit as Elma from Cross, Full Metal Jaguar. Mwamba has a chain order icon, but he leaves the party before you unlock chain attacks, so it goes unused. Nimue and Yoren have chain order icons, except these are dummy portraits and weren't complete, possibly indicating they were initially planned as heroes, but later scrapped. Dixon has 2 unused callouts for Melia and Riki, despite the fact that neither Melia or Riki can be in the party with Dixon at the same time. Strangely, these 2 lines aren't present in the Japanese release. There are some facts about Yaldabaoth from the Secret Files fan translation, also known as Goldface, the face mechon that Egil uses. It was called Yaldabaoth, the most powerful mechon of all. It runs on Hom's organs like the other face mechons, but unlike them, it can house a Machina pilot. We actually knew what Masha would look like after DLC Wave 2 came out, because some of her artwork was included in the files. However, the images present in the DLC Wave 2 were not the final versions, and were altered once Wave 3 came out. Xenoblade Cross was originally supposed to have multiple planets you can traverse between and giving you the option to explore them as you want, but thanks to the Wii U being underpowered and Cross having a terrible development cycle, and also the whole thing being slightly too ambitious, they scrapped the planets and stuck to a few continents and a whole different planet. I guess this is the only future redeemed spoiler, so feel free to click off. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the light you see passing by in the credits. You can even see it on the soundtrack cover art for the 3rd game. Whatever this light is, it's gonna be very important for the future of the Xenoblade series. Probably kicking off Xenoblade 4 in some way. The Nopon on my profile picture is Bam Bam, who you can meet across various locations around the world during multiple quests. The only reason why that is the case is because of the screenshot that I did on my Switch. I thought that the smile was very cute and pure, considering that he is simply happy to travel the world with his friend Doran. So I used his smile as my YouTube channel logo. And that's it! I hope you found those infos and trivia about Xenoblade interesting and enjoyable to listen to. I thank you all very much for watching, and hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. Have a good one, folks. See you guys later.